Marvel Studios is finally getting ready to reveal the secret invasion and the extent of the Skrull infiltration, so let's dive into the story's comic book origins and see how it will change the MCU. What's up, my comic comrades? Secret Invasion is right around the corner, so today we're going to give you everything you need to know about the original Secret Invasion storyline to prepare you for the MCU series. Obviously, if the MCU's track record is any indication, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to take massive liberties with the direction for the story. But after this episode, you'll know how it all went down in the source material, so let's do this thing. The Secret Invasion story revealed that Skrulls had secretly invaded Earth and disguised themselves as several notable heroes. But in the beginning of Secret Invasion, before we even get the main Secret Invasion 8-issue miniseries, which landed directly after the Civil War story arc, Elektra was killed in New Avengers issue 31 and revealed to be a Skrull. This was then immediately brought to Tony Stark's attention, and he quickly realizes there's no way she was the only one. He knows that means there's definitely more Skrulls disguising themselves as heroes, possibly even among the Avengers. So Iron Man, being a member of the Illuminati, takes the Elektra Skrull corpse to his fellow members Black Bolt, Reed Richards, Doctor Strange, and so on, as seen in Illuminati issue 5, and basically tells them this is a huge problem. He says something to the effect of, we don't know how long the Skrulls have been masking themselves here on Earth, and if Elektra went so long undetected, there's definitely more. Skrulls are like roaches, there's never just one. So we need to figure this out and figure it out quick. Anyway, this brings us to issue 1 of the Secret Invasion miniseries. At the beginning of the issue, we see some of Marvel's most brilliant minds examining the Elektra Skrull body, like Tony Stark, Reed Richards, and Hank Pym. And they're perplexed because Elektra, being a Skrull, was undetectable to all their science, telepathy, and even Doctor Strange's magic. She's essentially a perfect mimic or copy. So they're examining the body, being like, we have to figure out a way to find out who else is a Skrull, essentially reverse engineering her corpse. Now, as all this is going on, we see that S.W.O.R.D. just detected an unidentified alien craft hitting Earth in the Savage Land. Meanwhile, the Secret Avengers who are at their hideout get word of this and are like, we have to go check it out. Now remember, this is post-Civil War. So the Secret Avengers like Luke Cage, Spider-Man, Iron Fist, Wolverine, and so on are in hiding because they chose not to register their true identities with their Superhuman Registration Act. But they're still heroes, so they gotta go check it out and see what's what. Meanwhile, the mighty Avengers who are registered heroes, consisting of Iron Man, Sentry, Miss Marvel, and so on, also have to go check out the situation. Now obviously when both teams get there, they run into each other, and it's kind of like Civil War all over again, as you have Cage's team on one side versus Iron Man and Carol Danvers' team on the other, standing off against each other. Meanwhile, back at the S.W.O.R.D. station in space, who is monitoring all of this, we see Dum Dum Dugan, longtime S.H.I.E.L.D. agent and friend of Nick Fury, is revealed to be a Skrull, at which point he blows up S.W.O.R.D.'s space station. But obviously several of the key members from S.W.O.R.D. like Abigail Brand are able to eject in some jelly-like space pod of sorts, which saves them. But the double crossing doesn't end, because while this is going on, Jarvis activates something remotely on Iron Man's armor, but also every satellite and basically everything else Stark has access to, as Jarvis is also revealed to be a Skrull. Now this is utterly crazy because at this point in time, Tony Stark was the new director of S.H.I.E.L.D., meaning he had access to every military satellite, weapon, and US government thing you could think of, meaning effectively he lost control of the country. Now, as the issue continues, we find out that the ship that crashed into Savage Lands contains classic heroes. I'm talking Avengers, X-Men, a little bit of everything, all in their classic iconic looks. Captain America asks, "This it? Did we make it back to Earth?" With Wolverine saying, "Yeah, I was about to say that because I know who I am, but who are you guys supposed to be exactly?" As they're staring at the other versions of themselves, aka the Mighty Avengers and Secret Avengers who have been on Earth. Essentially teasing that the classic looking heroes might be Skrulls, or maybe they're the originals and the ones here on Earth are Skrulls. It's a hot freaking mess. The issue then takes us to Hank Pym and Reed Richards, who are still examining and doing studies on Elektra's Skrull body. And Reed, being Reed, finally figures out a way to determine who are Skrulls and who are not. At which point Hank Pym turns on him and shoots him with a molecular destabilizer that makes Reed look like exploding bubblegum. It's actually pretty nasty, as his eyeballs hanging out over here with his jaw hanging out over there. Either way, this is where we find out that Hank Pym is also a Skrull. As you can see, things keep ramping up to the point where you don't know who you can trust. And that's probably one of the most fun aspects of the story, like a really good spycraft mystery. And while we're on the topic of universal threats, the Borg are back in Star Trek Fleet Command. You've heard us talk about Star Trek Fleet Command in the past. It's a dope game that's available for free on iOS, Android, and Windows. You can download it now by using our link below or by scanning the QR code. We're also excited to have Star Trek Fleet Command as today's sponsor. In this fun sci-fi adventure game, the Borg are back in new missions inspired by their their iconic appearances in Star Trek The Next Generation. You can join fan favorite Hugh the Borg and help him stop a scientist's quest for revenge against the Collective. Save an eager Pakled from himself as he tries to get the Borg to assimilate him on purpose. And prevent the Borg from assimilating the technology behind your AI assistant, Maya. They're also introducing Fleet Commanders, a new feature to Star Trek Fleet Command, allowing players to assign well-known Star Trek heroes and villains to oversee strategy from their star bases for increased power and effectiveness in the game. Fleet Commanders launches with 3 choices: Admiral James T. Kirk, Captain Spock, or Locutus of Borg. You can even build the Command Center, a new starbase location from which to manage your Fleet Commanders. It's a great game to play in your downtime, especially for my fellow Trekkies. Again, Star Trek Fleet Command is available for free on iOS, Android, and Windows. Download now by using our link below or by scanning the QR code. Live long and prosper. Now this brings us to Secret Invasion Issue 2, where we see the heroes from the spaceship fighting the heroes who are already on Earth, creating scenes where you have no idea who's a Skrull and who is not, with the heroes left trying to figure out the same exact thing. Now, in the midst of all this, we are taken back to New York City at the very end of the issue, where we see Skrulls have also invaded New York, mimicking the powers of several different Marvel heroes and villains. This leads us to issue 3, where the Young Avengers are forced to fight off the Skrull invasion in Times Square, but they're not faring so well. Meanwhile, back in the Savage Land, a Tony Stark infected with the Skrull virus is greeted by Jessica Drew, who reveals herself to be a Skrull and queen of the Skrulls at that. She also tries to convince Tony that he is a Skrull, saying stuff to him like, "Your work on Earth is done." He's like, "My work on Earth?" She replies, "You will go down in our people's history as the greatest soldier the Armada has ever had." But this is Tony Stark. Sick or not, he's super intelligent and knows he's not a Skrull, or at least he thinks he knows. And then back in New York, the Young Avengers continue to fight the Skrulls, but they are just getting wrecked. At which point, Nick Fury shows up with a massive gun and his Howling Commandos, saying, "Okay, Commandos, let's turn this thing around." This leads us to issue 4. It opens up with the Skrulls experimenting on Reed Richards to learn how his physiology works, but also to essentially kill him and remove him from the equation, as he's the smartest dude on Earth and was able to figure out a way to detect who is and isn't a Skrull. And clearly, they don't want that. We are then taken back to the Savage Land, where the Queen of the Skrulls is still trying to convince Tony that he's a Skrull, which he's starting to fall for. But Black Widow shows up and saves him and is like, "Dude, you're not a Skrull. I'm gonna give you a shot of adrenaline and it's gonna hurt, but it'll get you back on your feet in about an hour, hopefully." Meanwhile, we see Abigail Brand, leader of SWORD, make her way onto a Skrull ship to try to save Reed Richards. Then back in New York, we see Nick Fury and his commandos are still fighting the Skrulls along with several other heroes. Then finally, at the end of the issue, lightning strikes, frying some Skrulls, as we see Thor has arrived. In issue 5, with Thor having saved the heroes of New York, we see Nick Fury, the Young Avengers, and others listen to the Skrulls make a broadcast to the world disguised as other celebrities, basically saying, "We're not here to hurt you, we're here to save you. We have traveled the universe to save you from yourselves. You have so much potential, but you are on the brink of complete disaster. You are at constant war and living in disease you cannot cure." Basically, the Skrulls are saying, "We're here to take over and help you because you can't help yourselves, and you can either go along with that or die." Elsewhere, we see that Abigail Brand is able to save Reed Richards, at which point he's like, "Hey, you gotta help me get back to my research so we can create a device to figure out who is and isn't a Skrull." At which point, obviously, Reed is able to create a device that is able to identify who the Skrulls are. So they go back to the Savage Land and blast this device at everyone, showing exactly who the Skrulls are, at which point the heroes start taking down all the Skrulls, with Clint Barton being devastated that Mockingbird, the love of his life, is actually a Skrull, being forced to kill her. Now, with this Skrull detecting device made by Reed, all the heroes in the Marvel Universe band together and go to New York to start destroying every Skrull they come across. I mean, it's all-out war, and we see this play out through issues 6 and 7. It's such a massive event, you even have the Watcher there watching. We even see they're fighting a Skrull Galactus and Skrull Yellowjacket, like it's just everybody and anybody from either side. Now, one of the big reveals during this battle takes place at the end of issue 7, where we see that Hank Pym, who is a Skrull, had previously had Janet Van Dyne, aka the Wasp, take what she thought was a growth formula in case they ever needed to both go giant. But what we learn is that in actuality, it turns her into a giant bomb, which the Skrulls are now about to detonate to kill everybody. And this all leads us to the 8th and final issue, where good old Thor steps in yet again to use his godly power to save the day and make Janet go bye-bye before she could blow up and kill everybody. At this point, all the heroes in the world are devastated because, remember, the Wasp, though not an A-list character, character in the Marvel Universe, she's an OG. She's a founding member of the Avengers, so the heroes and everyone in the world are not happy. So as they get ready to kill the Skrull Queen, Norman Osborn steps in and kills her before the heroes can, in front of cameras and the world. Even though the heroes are the ones who are putting in all the hard work and the ones who truly save the day, in the eyes of the world, Norman Osborn is the one who saved the day. Which is hilarious because even after Norman Osborn killed the Skrull Queen, the heroes had to go into space and destroy the rest of the Skrull Armada. Now, on top of Norman Osborn being seen as the savior, the world is blaming Iron Man for the Skrull invasion, as they say it's because of his tech that connects to all the country's defense systems and satellites that the Skrulls were able to hack into it. At which point they strip Tony of his role as director of S.H.I.E.L.D. and give it to Norman Osborn, which is a direct setup and lead into the Dark Reign and Norman's Dark Avengers. But there you have it, guys, all the highlights and things you need to know about the original Secret Invasion story that the Disney Plus series will be loosely based on. I'm curious to see what elements of the story they're going to pull from. Needless to say, after hearing the original, it's definitely going to be drastically different. I think more than anything, we hope that they keep the aspect where the story leads to an eventual Dark Avenger setup, because that could be amazing if done right. But what do you guys think? Let us know down in the comments. Otherwise, we'll see you next time when we talk about all things comics.